Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and hello everyone. My name is Abdul Karim alias from University Science Malaysia. Okay, in this video, I would like to discuss the topic on student engagement. Why student engagement? Because this is one of student engagement, or engaging students in the classroom is one of the main challenges faced by many educators. And I'm sure that every educators would want to have 100% participation. We want to create a so-called active learning, and we want the students to highly engage in our class. But how do we know? How do we know that the students are highly engaged or partially engaged or starting to disengage, or worse, totally disengaged, and they are not there, although they are physically there or virtually there? We can see them in the webcam, but their mind is not there. So it's always a great challenge for educators to engage students. So what's the meaning of engagement, the true meaning of engagement, and what are the indicators of students when they are engaged or disengaged? This is the focus of this video. So let's dive in. So now let's start by looking at this so-called continuum of engagement. And I have adapted this from a book the Distance Learning Playbook, Grade Scale 12 by Douglas Fisher, Nancy Frey, and John Hattie, page 104. Well, although this actually, the book is Grade Scale 12, but basically the idea of student engagement that we are discussing here is applicable also to any level, including higher education. So apparently, engagement is actually, we can visualize it as a continuum. So as you can see on the diagram here, on the slides here, we can visualize it as this as a spectrum, as a spectrum or a continuum. On the right hand side here, and is where all teachers or educators would want to be, because I'm sure that we want to have all our students to be highly engaged, right? So highly engaged on the right hand side here. On the other extreme, as we move along to the left hand side here, the student will be partially engaged and less and less engaged, and slowly they will start to disengage, and worse, totally disengaged. And you don't want to be there, we don't want to be there, because when the students are totally disengaged, they will behave very differently, as we shall see. In the middle here, we have a zone, so-called comfort zone, or take it easy kind of attitude. This is also, we don't want to be in this zone. We don't want our students to be in this zone, because they are probably appears to be engaged, but they are not really engaged, they are not really there, they are not really participating. So we don't want to be in the middle as well, but we want to be ideally where in the right hand side here, where students are highly disengaged. Now let's look at the part where the students start to disengage. What kind of behavior they will display? So this is what we call behavioral engagement, because there are three dimensions of student engagement. One is called behavioral engagement, where they will show the reaction and how they behave. We can see from their action. And another one is, second one is called emotional engagement, or affective or relational engagement. This involves emotion. And the third one is cognitive engagement. So when students start to disengage, we will observe, or we will notice a change in their behavior. The first part here is called withdrawing. So this is where they are being distracted, they are not really focused, they start to physically separating from the group, they are kind of isolating themselves, and they don't want to really participate in the group activity, and they are being distracted with maybe looking at their phone and doing other things other than the task given. So they start to withdraw. That is the early sign or indicators of student being disengaged now. I think that this is an early stage where we can quickly get them to engage again. But if we just leave it, the students would now drift more towards the left. They become more more and more disengaged, and this the phase where we call it avoiding. They start to look for ways to avoid work. They will give excuses. They will give a lot of reasons not to do the task, or they will display so-called off-task behavior. You ask the students to do one thing, they will do different thing. They are not really doing the thing that we ask or we want to get them to do. So this is a so-called off-task behavior. So avoiding is getting is a situation where students get into more disengaged. They get more and more disengaged. And the worst is where the student totally disengaged and they become disruptive. So this is disrupting, and this is where they start to distract others. They are not participating, and at the same time they are distracting, they are disturbing other students in the group, in the class. So disrupting the learning. So as a result, it will disrupt learning, and it will disturb the whole classroom. So we don't want to be here, and we should be alert as a teacher. We should be alert to identify and notice the sign when the students start to withdraw, avoiding, and also disrupting. What we want to be is when the students engage. So when we talk about active learning, actually most of the time what we have in mind, students are active in the sense that they are participating. They are, when you ask questions, they will raise their hand, or they will be the first, or very quickly to give a quick response. So that's how usually we have in mind when we talk about active learning. So actually this is an early stage of student engagement. This is what we call participating, when students are obediently doing work. You can see that they are doing work, they are paying attention, they are responding to questions, and it is already quite good. But we want to be better. When we talk about students engagement, we want to be on the highly engaged side. We want to engage them. It's just like, once you hook the students, just like you hook the fish, when you go fishing, the fish cannot escape anymore. Although they struggle hard to escape, but they cannot escape because they just get hooked. So the next phase in the continuum of engagement here is investing. So this is where students will start to asking questions. They take a proactive approach, asking questions, and not only basic questions, but it's higher order kind of questions, very critical type of questions, very thoughtful, insightful questions. And they start to engage in having this so-called intellectual discussion, intellectual discourse with their peers as well as with the teachers. If we can get this is really very good, and we can say that the students now is very engaged in our class. They start to ask questions because they start to value their learning. This is where students now become use a metacognitive learning strategies. They become self-directed learners. But the best is we want the students to be highly engaged. Highly engaged is where the students is in the so-called driving. They are in the driving seat. They are driving their own learning. They are in total control. They take charge of their learning. They driving their brain. So they are really using a metacognitive learning strategies here, thinking about their own thinking about their what they are doing, thinking about what they have learned today, yesterday, or this week. Always thinking and value about their learning. And this is where, when they are in the driving seat, they start to set their own goal. Today I want to learn this, I want to do this, I want to complete this assignment, and so on. They are self-driven, highly motivated. And we can also see the sign where when the students are highly engaged, they start to seeking feedback, and they do self-assessment. So this is on this spectrum where students are highly engaged. We get the students to be self-directed learner and self-regulated learners. So basically that is a continuum of engagement, and if we understand this one, then we can see whether the students are engaged, because we can see the signs and their behavior and their reaction and their response, whether they are in the engagement or highly engaged zone, or whether they are now moving towards the disengaged zone, and then we can do the necessary intervention. So that's all for now, a continuum of engagement, to understand about how do we approach and get students to engage in our classroom. And having once we have understood this, it's easier for us to start designing what kind of learning activities and strategies that we can use to engage our students. Thank you very much for listening. I hope I have given value for your time. See you in another video. Thank you. Bye bye.